Are you developing a piece of property for a small farm, a homestead, or an estate? I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I want to share with you a few tips for surveying your land, identifying a home site, and then ultimately getting started. Now, I want to introduce to you at the end of this program something very special where you can get help designing your property, where we can actually sit down with you and do some planning and really get your property underway. Now, it doesn't matter if you're going to be buying a piece of property or you already own a piece of property. Knowing how to choose a home site is critical. Now, in past videos, we talked about land clearing, whether you should forest mulch or clear the land, whether you should send the wood away for chip or use it for timber. There are some exciting developments in that area that are helpful, but ultimately, you have to determine whether or not the land has any use by plan, not by speculation. So I know where I want my home site. It's going to be slightly elevated on the property so that when rainwater capture comes in, I can capture that in cisterns and use it as supplemental water to a future well or even an agricultural well. I know that I may not be living on the property right away, but I may have animals and other things since I actually live very close to the property that we're on right now. And then I also work with other property owners as far as what they got managing on it, where I'm still learning. But ultimately, what's going on is that the infrastructure must be in place on paper prior to planning. I know the light isn't all that good. There we go. Look at that. That works real good. Anyway, my tripod's broken, but the home site is important on paper, more important than it is on the ground itself, because in this particular case, this hill would need to be leveled in order to put in a home site, and the rest of the woods can just be trails. And you guys saw those trail systems and how powerful that is to be able to access the property. In fact, I had my truck down there next to the property line just a little while ago, dropping off some fence for a project that's coming up. So make sure you like and subscribe so you can see that next project. Another factor that's important to consider when you do your home site is that you want to be able to drive around the entire home site with a tractor trailer, not just your vehicle, but a tractor trailer. Now, why is that? Now, a lot of folks will want to leave tall trees near their house for the aesthetics, but I'm talking about, again, a homestead or a small farm, high utility value without destroying the property. Being able to get a tractor trailer in will allow you to get like a well truck. So when your well truck comes in, it needs a 21-foot wide spacing. If you're going to have any storage containers, you need 121 feet landing for that. So a 40-foot container needs 121 feet to land. So again, if you can drive completely circumnavigate your potential home site, you have trails, you have access, you can start camping in the home site, and then when you're ready to clear it for your actual home, the material and equipment can just pull in. An excavator can drive back here. So this particular site behind me has a loop around it. The loop is, I don't know, 21 feet at a minimum. Some places is 60, 70 feet. I can literally get an RV trailer in here. I can get a heavy equipment in here. I can get whatever needs to come in here to do its job, and I'm going to pay less because I've got the access for the equipment. And so the home site on paper is important, but then these trails and access points and other things are about getting that instant utility of the land. Like, so for example, me and the kid are excited. We're going to camp out here. I've hiked out here. Some folks have four-wheeled back here. We're looking to have a horse trail. We actually do have horse trails. I think the minimum width of a trail around here is like 8.5 feet wide, but the majority of the trails are 13 foot wide, 21 foot wide. Again, how can you use the land long before you can use the land? And I don't know if that makes sense for you, but I know a lot of folks, so I've worked with real estate folks, there's a lot of out-of-state owners that haven't touched their land in 20, 30, 40 years, and they have a dream inside that they don't get to utilize because they don't have the skills that we're talking about here. Now, there's more to it. There's different tools you can use to map out your land. It's a little bit more than just looking at Google Earth. There's even tools that can tell you about if there's rock under here. Because if I cleared out this home site and they start to excavate it and it's hard as a rock, then it's going to cost me more money, and there could have been a better site elsewhere on the property. Another factor to consider, I'm just going to walk around a little bit because my arm's getting tired holding the phone. I broke my gimbal thing. Anyway, so we talked about the land preparation, which is trails and access points. Now, this particular piece of land was good for timber. You know, most of the trees around here are pretty thin. Like if I'm building a pole barn or something like that, you know, these make good poles, but again, I'm not as handy as I look. So I might not be doing that. I work full time. I have the newsletters. I have the other stuff that I do. So that may not be the best thing for me to do. So selling off the trees, if they have value, may have greater value, may have greater use. So there might be a company working with a timber broker who can use these trees as posts, and then I have gone off and made money elsewhere while they're paying me a little bit for this. You're not going to make money for it. It's basically going to pay for some of the fencing, if there's fencing. But again, you don't just want a lot of people that are going to clear a home site, and I've seen this driving through the county. There'll be a big giant muddy mess, big giant rectangular muddy mess in the middle of a field somewhere, and it'll sit for 2 years, 3 years. Next thing you know, it's grown up like this. So you don't want to clear the land until you have a plan. Then you want to have your plan on paper, because when you're building your house, you need engineering drawings. So we're going to drop a couple containers here to have cold storage, not cold storage, but a climate controlled storage, and then a storage that's going to be for equipment. So 2 containers coming in here. Now I can drop containers in here. I can drop a container right down here. So you got 120 foot, and then the guy can drive back around. So you can actually drive a loop, a circle, drive up in here, back up, drop the container. Now you can put a container on railroad ties if you want, right? You can put a container on gravel. You can put a container on a concrete pad. There's a lot of things you can do. Again, put it down on paper, because here, if I put a container on that section right there, the front of the container will be on the ground, but the back end of the container will be 6 to 8 feet off the ground. It's not a good idea to do. And then I could do something fancy, like put a container this way and then lean other container. No, see, if you drop a container here, it's going to be here in 10 years, okay? So again, you have to think about what you're going to use the land for. In my case, the project that we might be doing, and again, you put your comments below if you want to see it, we may do a container warehouse. So it's based on an Edo Japanese warehouse design, and it would basically allow us to put the containers in place, have a barn shelter for animals, have some storage for dry storage for hay, have some storage for equipment. Again, we may or may not do the project. Get your comments in below if you want to see how that's going to work, if you got questions about something like that. But again, I can design it on paper. I can design my house on paper. I can design my buildings on paper. I can do all that on paper before disrupting the land, and then I can get out here and survey. I can look at my elevations. I can look how much dirt comes off the top of here to go down there. Now, do I really have to know how to do all that stuff? Well, no, I can get a general idea, and then I can contract that out. That's one of the value adds that I can help you with, because I've actually worked in the procurement. Well, just a little background. I was a senior systems administrator, risk management officer, somebody who basically manages people. So we manage storage, we manage projects getting done, regulatory reviews, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be better skilled to go ahead and get 3 contractors, figure out what's the best price. Now, I'm not made of money, so again, this type of thing, we have to, if we plan it on paper, we have the least amount of risk. Again, we can look at different designs. We can look at a pole barn versus timber frame versus slab construction versus gravel bottom. See, if I have animals in the bottom of a warehouse type barn here, or a warehouse building, and it's on gravel, then that's going to be a mess to deal with, because every time you clean or muck out the stalls, then you got gravel to deal with. So would a concrete pad be better? Again, there's an approach to lay this stuff out, and that's something that I can teach you, and that's what I'm going to share with you at the end of this program. So again, we talked about getting access to the land, making it useful for at least family camping. I've got a lot of videos on that. Sometimes it's forest mulcher. Sometimes it's to actually timber in the trees. Now, there's some land way over on this side. They got timbered pretty rough. But again, that's what they wanted to do with their land. It leaves a giant gap over here. But again, it's their land. They can do what they want with it. What I want to do with the land is I want to get it as useful as possible. So we've had friends camping over here. We've hiked over here, done some shooting over here, done a lot of different things on this piece of land. And we're getting a lot of value already, even though I can't live out here necessarily. There's no occupancy permit. There's no, that kind of stuff isn't set up yet. But here's the deal. How quickly can you get from trails on land to a home site? Well, if we do it the traditional way, or the way that most people do it, we would bulldoze all this into a giant pile, and it would rot, and all this biomass would go to waste. So we want to look at options there to put the biomass in use, either by forest mulching it. You can see this beautiful ground here. By the way, when the ground heats up, there's a little heat current coming up. So the cool air comes out from under the trees, and then the heat kind of raises up a little bit. Butterflies everywhere out here. Very beautiful. But the mulch insulates the ground, so we're not losing nitrogen and carbon evaporation and a lot of stuff. The water soaks into the ground, and so we keep that water in the ground. We don't evaporate that moisture, but we still have this cool little current for pigeons and other things. So by the way, I'm a Virginia Master Naturalist, permaculture design consultant. So my interest is more on the habitat, and so I don't want to just bulldoze a giant rectangle here and leave it set for years. I want to have a planned approach that allows us to work with the land rather than to force the land to do what we want to do. Okay, so how do we turn this into a home site? Every property is different. We have access to the property so we can get vehicles in and out of here. That means you can do some RV camping if you want. You can open the property up to hip camp if you want. There's some factors related to that. I have a special report, we'll talk about this at the end, that goes over, I think it's about 27 different ways to make money from your land. So, because that's probably the last question. It kind of comes up in the back of people's heads. If I'm planning on paper, am I going to get my hopes and dreams all up to build something I can't afford? Well, you might, and that's the problem. So we have to look at how we're going to make money from the land, and that's again why we push the high utility value. But also, utility has to do with, can you hunt 4 seasons on the land? Can you run goats on the property? Can you get camping use out of it? Can you get alternative streams of income off of the property? So that's what I want to talk about right now. So it's getting really nice out, and me and the kid are planning to do some camping over here, but I've partnered with another organization in this area that actually has survival classes. And if you register for one of their survival classes, we will bonus a couple other activities. Now, you don't have to take them right away, but going into these survival classes, and these are basic classes that you need to know when you're when you have a homestead. So for example, if you've got an off-grid homestead and you're completely out of power and you're completely out of whatever you need off-grid, could you still survive in the woods? What if you're out hiking? So I talk a lot about family camping. My kid's been out to Appomattox, so I've done hikes and trails around this area. If you were in the woods and something happened, would you have the essential survival skills necessary in order to be comfortable? Because that's really where you want to start. Because you're going to go out here and spend time on the land, get experience with the land, get an idea where things are. I was thinking about, okay, I'm going to have a compound house up here, but I got to build this barn. How does that all fit into the larger structure of the land? Because once you build permanent structures, they're there. Once you get a building permit to build permanent structures, when you get beyond agricultural buildings, it's going to be there for a long time. But the reason I'm talking about the survival essentials is because camping out on this land, hiking out on this land, has given me more ideas of better ways to utilize the land and actually work with the property rather than having heavy equipment come out here and do a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not against heavy equipment because you can come out here and do it one time very well and it'll be a lifetime of enjoyment. See, I don't need to develop this whole property. I only need to develop around the home site. And then, of course, what's going to be around your home site? It's going to be your gardens. It's going to be your entertaining areas. It's going to be places for guests to come visit. So here's what I'm offering you. I'm going to have a link below where you can get on an email list and ask questions about land management. Okay, I've got a few videos on what to do about clearing land, what to do about how do you plan your trails and design your trails, how do you do the surveying, what kind of tools are available. Then we can, if you join that list, we can actually do group Q&As on a weekly basis. Because I know a lot of people are concerned right now with what's going on in the economy, and they want to, I don't want to say bug out, but if they have to bug out on their land, would their land have basic sanitary resources? Would their land have access to water? Would their land already have some production value? So either they're foraging in the woods, and that's what we're talking about, the survival essentials, because if you know this, If you know your property has these things, this is the important part, then you can feel more confident, more comfortable with the things that are going on around you. If you knew you got a little piece of land out in the country, and if everything hits the fan in the city, that you could just pack your vehicle up and go out into the country and enjoy the weekend. You've had a rough week at work, maybe you've been laid off for a while, maybe you have some frustrations and you just want to get out here in nature, chill and relax and spend time with the family. Could you do that today with your land? Now, a lot of folks have not planned, they have not put the effort in. We can help you do that. In fact, as a bonus for signing up to the Survival Essentials course with this local Sustainable Homestead Institute, I will bonus you a series of one-on-one consultations where we get on a call and we go over your property. We'll bring up satellite maps, we'll bring up all the other things that are necessary to start that initial design. We'll start looking at the initial phases. What do you want to do with the land? What could the land be doing for you? What are you planning to do with the land in the future? Is it an investment property? Is it a property that you're going to live on? Is it a property that you might want to live on temporarily until you find a more ideal piece of property? See, that's something that happens too. We were talking this morning. There's a death, you know, like bad things are going to happen if they can't find it. Need for hay land, because people cannot feed their animals on the price of grain today. So we'll talk about these things. Now, I'm on the business perspective of things. I'm going to want you to have a project plan. I'm going to want you to have a list of requirements. I'm going to want you to have some maps and surveys. I'm going to want you to have a budget. And those things, a lot of people don't want to do them, but those things make the difference between having a land you can use day one of ownership, because maybe you're looking at a piece of land and you want to say, well, what can I do with this land day one of ownership? Or if you've had the land for 5 or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years and you want to get more use from that land. Again, I'm not about you ripping it and selling the timber off or anything. We'll look at a number of options. Oh, just saw a little bit of wildlife over there. See, I can't be out here for long without getting distracted by its beauty and the availability of just being able to just walk through the woods. I want to show you. Let's take a quick break for a second here. Look at this. This is how it was before. And I could only travel, so we use a GPS when we're tracking through the woods, when we're mapping and looking for survey lines. That's a tip for you right there. Needs a little better than a phone, but you can also use a phone and the app All Trails. But going through this wood, I could only get 1 mile per hour, okay? Sometimes even less, because it's kind of thick and everything. You end up with ticks. But in these woods, I can walk the 5 miles of trails in my underwear if I wanted to, because it's out in the woods and I could do that if I want to. That's called freedom. But basically, I can walk out here, we can set up a tent, I drove the truck through here to drive around. Man, see, I'm all about making your own personal park. So again, get on my email list for the Prosperity Homestead newsletter, and there's always a link below here, and I'm going to let you know about the bonuses that I have when you sign up for the Survival Essentials class with the partner organization that's literally right down the street. You might even get to meet me at the classes. I might be there more working, I could be a student too, but I'm working at the class, helping out. And then of course the bonus, there'll be a couple more bonuses, but the key bonus is the confidence that you gain with those skills. Now, how do we apply that to the property? How do we start applying permaculture design to get the maximum use out of the land itself? Okay. Then from the permaculture design, how do we get the budget straight? How do we get income driven so that you can pay for these things? And then ultimately, how do you get if you needed to use the land tomorrow, how do you have value on that land? I haven't done anything to hurt this property. If I had to sell along this property for some reason, it's actually worth 4 times. Now, I've had the property for a couple years now. It's just I think 2 years. I basically, day one, got the survey done, and I could not use the land because it was this thick woods, and there was a lot of scrub brush. It was pretty nasty. None of this is mature forest. Then I got the forest mulcher out. You've seen those videos. boom, we're camping on the land. We're coming out here and just sitting around and enjoying a little campfire in the evening. We're shooting, have a nice little 50-yard range, and I got a 100-yard range here. We're able to enjoy the land. Now we're getting to the next phase, and we're going to enjoy the land even more by getting it into a farm operation. So it's already a farm operation with we forage mushrooms and stuff like that. But again, what about your land? What about your dream? What about your security that comes with being able to go off on a piece of land and just get a mental health break? Okay, I know a lot of you guys out there have been hanging out with your other buddies and saying, you got this story. You're sitting around and you're like, man, when I get my land going, I'm going to be out there hunting all the time. Oh, when I get my land going, we're having a barbecue. Some of them city boys are saying it a little different. But do you see what I'm saying here? Oh, the sun's moving. Do you see what I'm saying here? Planning starts now. Not the next YouTube video. Not the next dream. Let's get that dream to reality by joining the newsletter at prosperityhomestead.org, www.prosperityhomestead.org/newsletter, or you can go to the contact page and ask your questions about land utilization. Okay? I'll send you information. First off, I'm going to start sending it to everybody about the survival essential courses held at the Sustainable Homestead Institute. Now, this is a limited time offer, but I'm going to send you those details. And then the bonuses that I am providing, thousands of dollars in value, where we'll get on group calls and we'll talk about properties. Now, we're not going to talk about where your property's located or anything. We're just going to answer questions. I got all kinds of questions that come in from the podcast and from the videos. And then we're also going to spin off. So if you attend the group call, you can attend a one-on-one call once we've confirmed that you're signed up for the Survival Essentials courses, which they hold 4 times a year. So there's really no excuse. You can register for the fall or the winter if you want, because spring classes are filling up quickly. Then we'll do the bonuses, and I'll even see if I can get some other folks in to talk about some of the survival topics. But the key thing is again, if you had to bug out on a piece of land, could you do it right now? If you wanted to spend the weekend just chilling with your family or your friends, could you do it right now? Could you do it in comfort? Because there's a big difference from where this property was and where it is now. Not only has it increased in value, but it's more like glamping than camping. I have to say, a lot of you folks, I've heard from your wives. Well, I haven't heard from your wife in particular, but if she was to call me up and talk to me about your camping ideas, what guys will tolerate as far as camping is concerned, she would definitely say she'd rather be glamping than camping. But again, this is where we go. So the first thing is access to the land. Second thing is planning your homestead on paper. So your home site is going to be slightly elevated, never at the highest elevation because you don't want the wind blowing over. It's going to be slightly behind the highest elevation or slightly ahead of the elevation. We can talk about that in permaculture design science part. But if you put it on paper, you can have a professional look it over and help you with the planning. The last thing is maximum utilization of the land today, not tomorrow. Why dream in the future when you can start living it today? And what I'm going to leave you with is, I just saw a nice little bird's nest up here. I don't know if we can see that. Oh, there it is. There it is right there. I'm going to leave you with that beauty. Anyway, I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of, if you go off to a next YouTube video after this and you don't click below or like and subscribe, I'm going to be disappointed, especially in the fact that too many people are just surfing that YouTube, man. They're addicted to that dopamine. I'm going to take a little chill walk around here, and I'm going to get all the dopamine that I need. I'm going to be all relaxed, and then I'm going to go home and be productive. But again, that's because there are certain things that you do to plan out your land. I can teach you those things, and I'm willing to teach you those things as a bonus when you sign up for the Survival Essentials class. There should be a link below. I'll see you in the next podcast. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead.